a launch of the ECOSOCC Resource Center, which is a collection of knowledge products that we have published on various issues that the African Union is engaged in. And we also will have a special dedicated ECOSOCC at 20 magazine that will also be launched here in Accra in July. We'll have a number of plenary sessions that we invite all of you to jump into. We have a number of them here, some of them looking at the whole trajectory of ECOSOCC from inception up to now. What are the challenges, the gaps, the achievements, the opportunities, and so on and so forth. So really going back and looking at, how well have we done, what are some of the areas we can improve, and so on and so forth. We also, another important thing I want to touch on is the last one there, which is African Civil Society and the Summit of the Future. The Summit of the Future is a process that is being led by the United Nations, basically trying to define what will come after the SDGs. And so there's something that's quite important. We want to make sure that African voices are reflected in this process as well. We will have additional parallel sessions that, again, you can join according to your interest, looking at different issues, different thematic areas, migration, illicit financial flows, peace and security, and so on and so forth. Again, we'll make this available so you can have a look at them. And then we will have a high-level media breakfast, so we'll do something similar to what we are doing now as well, to present the outcomes of the ECOSOCC Citizens Forum that we will do to the member states. So most importantly, I think for us is how we can all get involved. CSOs are our constituency. We deal with CSOs. We don't deal with ministers. We don't deal with officials. We deal with regular people, regular citizens. And so we have an open call for registration that is going to be opened up on our website starting from April 1st and running through all the month of April. So we really invite everybody to go on our website and register there so that you'll be able to follow and accompany ECOSOCC throughout the year in terms of all of the different programming activities that we've highlighted as well. For the media, I think, again, I've tried to recognize how important the media is. You cannot really underestimate that. So we really want the media to be, first of all, aware of what the commemoration is about, and to utilize some of your resources and networks to help us raise awareness about ECOSOCC, but also about the AU, right? Because the two have to go together. ECOSOCC exists as part of the AU, so how to raise awareness about ECOSOCC, about the AU, generate some buzz, and support the popularization of some of the key things that we do in the AU, including the Agenda 2063. We'll also be working with partners so that we can work around mobilization of resources so we can bring the African Union closer to the citizens of the continent. So I think we will leave it there in terms of the actual PowerPoint presentation. That will leave us maybe half an hour or so to have an interactive section, which we are here and are ready to respond to. So with this, let me hand over back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nana and William, Head of Secretariat. So now we are going to have an interactive session where we get some questions, clarifications, and also from the people who've joined us online. I already have one question that was sent. The question is, does ECOSOCC include traditional leaders of the continent, such as chiefs, kings, queens, princesses, in its programs? How is the plan in the future? So if we have some questions from the audience here, we can get to you. Just state your name and where you are coming from. Maybe we could help with somebody could help with I'm not sure if this is working. Okay, there we go. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much for, in inviting us to this very important event. I'm Andrew Songa from Kenya. I'm institutionally from the European Partnership for Democracy, but then beyond that also represent a wider consortium of organizations around a Pan-African project known as the Charter Project Africa that is focused on involving citizens in the implementation of the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. First of all, it's to congratulate you all for this monumental occasion and milestone. 20 years of service is indeed something worth celebrating, and I'm glad that you're already looking forward to the future and what it portends for citizen engagement. I just wanted to begin by asking with regards to the legal instruments that you mentioned. Obviously, the accreditation mechanism is going to be a paramount shift for civil society, and I just wanted clarity as to its status, because I think I saw in your presentation you mentioned unveiling legal instruments in the third quarter of this year. Is it that you hope to have it adopted by the media summit in July? And so that would be the question. And then with regards to the upcoming Citizens Forum, I'm obviously elated to see that the theme will center around democracy and the resilience of related institutions. And I just wanted to underscore that I think from the vantage point of our project, we will be looking forward to find ways to support the initiative, as we do believe citizen engagement is at the heart of democratic governance, and also to encourage ECOSOCC to continue on the path of trying to maximize and utilize civic technology as a pathway of broadening citizen engagement. We've had viable collaborations in that regard that are bearing fruit, and my hope is that then it will form a key pillar of your strategic initiatives going forward. But then congratulations once again, and we're looking forward to find ways to support your initiatives.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Osaekufo, and I'm representing the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network. I want to congratulate the team at ECOSOCC for your 20 years anniversary. And as my colleague Andrew did indicate earlier, 20 years is a major and significant achievement in the life of any organization or individual. But before I proceed, I think it's better I say something about WADEMOS. WADEMOS is a transnational civil society solidarity network based in West Africa here. We seek to build bridges of solidarity to anchor programs around peace and security, on constitutional changes of government, protection and safeguarding civic space and human rights defenders. My specific question has to do with the fact that there are increasing concerns around the threats to civil society globally. And particularly in West Africa, we've seen incidents of civil society actors, human rights defenders being under siege. And sometimes there's a need for protection, there is a need for them to have some kind of a body that they can fall on. As ECOSOCC is trying to coordinate or providing a framework for civil society and engagement with the African Union and its organs, how do you situate protection for civil society, especially in countries that are facing high levels of authoritarianism and attacks? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Yairo Lawe. I report for GTV. The first question I'd like to ask is, when is the exact date for the anniversary, or the 20th anniversary, the exact date? And I'd like to know your achievements as an organization for the past 20 years. What have you been able to achieve? And the impact it has had on Pan-African values as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Cliff Ekufu. I write for the Ghanaian Times. I would want to find out, I think in 2018, Ghana launched the Year of Return project with specific targets to the African diaspora. to extend a hand of friendship to get them back onto the continent. I would want to find out if that project has found expression in the scheme of things of ECOSOCC, and what ECOSOCC is doing to leverage that particular project to become a continental project rather than country specific, looking at the large diasporan community.
Okay. Maybe I can reward myself for volunteering to manage the mic. Yes. My name is Khabele Matlosa from Lesotho. I come from the Strategic Institute for Research and Dialogue, which is based in Maseru, but I'm also affiliated to the University of Johannesburg in South Africa with the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership. It's really my pleasure to be in this event, and I'd like to congratulate my friend Khalid and the team secretariat of ECOWAS for this important milestone. Just a couple of ideas, just to enrich your commemoration. The first is that I think ECOSOCC is strategically placed to really turn the dream of AU of the peoples into reality. Because we often hear our heads of state and government referring to this, that moving from AU of governments to AU of the people. And if ECOSOCC does not take that and turn it into reality, it will remain a rhetoric. It will remain a rhetoric. So the ECOSOCC, therefore, is strategically placed to turn that into a reality. And the Constitutive Act actually says so. And it rests on ECOSOCC, not the Assembly, to turn that into a reality. So we hope we can use this commemorative, spirit to really realize that. Linked to that is, in your inputs, you made good reference to AFCFTA. Yeah? And I support you fully on that. And we are ready to support any initiatives around that. But it's also important for ECOSOCC, even as you drive that agenda, to be deliberate in emphasizing free movement of persons. Much as AFCFTA is more inclined towards free movement of goods and services, we need to emphasize free movement of persons. African peoples moving freely in Africa. It's very important. It's extremely important. So ECOSOCC can make a huge difference there, because I doubt, I'm not a pessimist, but I doubt, frankly, that the FCFTA will do much in that field. They seem to be more inclined towards trade, services, goods. They may not do much. So ECOSOCC is strategically placed to do more in that area of free movement. Traders, women traders, are always moving, and they face enormous challenges. Youth, students are always moving. They face enormous challenges across borders. So ECOSOCC has to come to the rescue. Finally, I saw in the slides a reference to enhancing visibility of ECOSOCC in APSA. It's fine, but I think we need to balance. You need to walk on two legs. APSA will not succeed on its own without AGA, South African Governance Architecture. So I think ECOSOCC has to walk on those two legs. Stop not de-emphasizing APSA at the expense of AGA, but both. Because both are important. This continent, ECOSOCC would make a contribution if we could, prioritize three main agendas. Not that others are unimportant. If we can prioritize the democracy agenda through the African governance architecture, that's the future for this continent. Two, if we prioritize the peace and security agenda through APSA, and then finally the development agenda through the NEPAD and other. It's now called what's it called now? Development Agency, AUDA. Yes. So those three, I think, for me, really, if and ECOSOC therefore can actually bring sanity in terms of coordinating all those, not singling out one of them with at the expense of the others.
Sorry,
So,
sir.
yes,
I'm
thank you.
sorry to cut you, but we have like 10 minutes left, so just wrap up your question, if you can. Did you ask your question? Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry for that. Nana, over to you. You have like 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'll try to take them off the top. So does ECOSOC include traditional leaders in its programming? We include every network, every formation, that is in the non-state actor space. If they are able to bring some value or contribution to the overall effort that we are working on. So a good example will be in the area of peace and security, which Dr. Matlosa just mentioned. We work in particular collaboration with traditional leaders, religious leaders as well, in areas where mediation is called for, in areas where conflict prevention is called for. We've had specific programs where we are looking at, de-escalating potential issues that might lead to conflict, or even trying to deal with young people or members of the community who have been radicalized, at various levels. And to do this effectively, you need to be able to engage with sources of authority in those communities, and that includes traditional leaders as well as religious leaders as well. In terms of the legal instruments, yes, so the accreditation framework, the member states gave ECOSOC the responsibility to develop a draft accreditation mechanism that will be used to confer consultative status or observer status on CSOs that want to work with the AU. So we have done that work. We have presented it to member states. There is a process of iteration that is taking place, based on the feedback that member states are providing to the document. We are hopeful that before too long, we will reach a place where there is consensus on it so that it can be adopted. We already have successfully got member states to adopt the national chapter framework. So all of our focus now is on the accreditation framework, followed by the diaspora framework. So we are working very hard behind the scenes with member states on those issues. In terms of the concerns around the shrinking civil society space and protections, I think this is something that is really quite relevant. And I think ECOSOC, within the context of the African Governance Platform, are raising these issues to the attention of our member states. So the African Governance Platform, as Dr. Matlosa mentioned, is part of the AGA, African Governance Architecture. It composes multiple organs of the African Union that deal with issues to do with governance, democracy, human rights, and so on and so forth. And we very much recognize, some of the dynamics and sensitivities that we are seeing in different regions of the continent. And we try, as a collective within the AGA platform, to present member states with specific advocacy, around how to ensure that civil expression is protected, regardless of whatever the political environment happens to be. We also have the benefit of our leadership, like our presiding officer here. We also have deputy presiding officers, one for every sub-region. And these officials are working very hard behind the scenes in terms of diplomacy, engaging with leadership of the various member states in order to try to lower the temperature and make sure that civil society organizations receive the protection that they are due. The exact date for the 20th anniversary, I have been informed, is the 4th of July. And in terms of the achievements and impacts, I think it's been 20 years, but it's been 20 years of institution building, so it's 20 years of basically growing the organ from a pronouncement of member states to an actual structure that is able to interact with the rest of the African Union ecosystem. I think one clear achievement will be the fact that as of today, member states clearly and unambiguously provide the space for ECOSOCC to channel civil society perspectives into the work of the union. So one of the things that you might find interesting is that our presiding officer here is not somebody, so he's from Morocco, but neither him nor the 4 deputies that are supporting him are from the governments of their countries. So these are people that are leading civil society organizations who have been elected to the top leadership positions of ECOSOCC, and he sits together with the heads of state and government during the African Union Summit. So the space and the access that we have, I think, is something that is really remarkable that you don't really have anywhere else, where you have somebody representing civil society sitting side by side with our heads of state and government and able to take the floor and convey their contributions and perspectives of civil society. So I think that is really something that is quite useful. And what we want to do is we want to maximize our potential so that at all times when decisions are being made, we don't forget or we don't neglect the angle of saying, okay, we know you want to do this, but here are the different ways that this decision might impact civil society, and these are the things that we want you to be aware of. In terms of the what is ECOSOCC doing to leverage Ghana's Diaspora Initiative? So a couple things here. Within the African Union sort of framework, we have a continental diaspora program, which is led within the African Union Commission in Addis. So the presiding officer recognized the head of the Civil Society Directorate Division of CEDAW, who is Salma, who is here. So CEDAW is Citizens and Diaspora Organizations Directorate of the African Union Commission. And what they do on a day-to-day basis is they work with our national governments in terms of how do you leverage the expertise and resources of your diaspora populations, in support of development back home, right? So that is what CEDAW does. Within ECOSOCC, we do work with CEDAW in certain areas. So as I mentioned, ECOSOCC's mandate is really around civil society and creating spaces for people-to-people interaction. And so within ECOSOCC, we have, for instance, for the past 3 to 4 years, something that we call the Diaspora P2P Forum, People-to-People Forum, that brings together CSOs from Africa with their counterparts from the Caribbean, where they are able to interact and share ideas around common topics. But just to reassure you that the diaspora file is active and CEDAW is in the driving seat for that. Free movement, absolutely. So I'm happy that you brought this up because we literally just finished a consultation with our parliamentarians just last month. We were working together with the Pan-African Parliament where we have different MPs that we brought together so that we can sit together and look at how do we make sure that we are able to ratify the Continental Protocol on Free Movement. For those that might not necessarily be aware of this, most of us have heard of the CFTA. The CFTA right now is very popular, because it's dealing with money, investments, economics, and member states like this. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. We want the CFTA to succeed. However, the CFTA was always intended to be operationalized alongside the Continental Protocol on Free Movement. The two are always meant to go together because you cannot have a single market where you don't have freedom of movement. So ECOSOCC has actually taken this on board as one of our key objectives, that in the short term, we want to be able to reach the 15 ratification that we need in order for the Free Movement Protocol to enter into effect. We have done over the past 2 years any number of activities, including national level consultations with civil society organizations and governments. We are now working with Pan-African Parliament on the parliamentary angle because these things need to be domesticated by the national parliaments. So now we've gone to PAP to say, let us have a plan together, bring your membership from within the various parliaments of Africa. Let's sit together and see what are the issues that may be preventing us from reaching the ratification target that we need. Is it a lack of information? You know, do we need to bring to you people who are resource people who can answer questions that you have? Is it maybe data that we need to gather in terms of the apprehensions that sometimes accompany issues to do with free movement? But we are working very hard on this issue. In fact, next month in April, we'll be back in Accra, where we are bringing the member state focal points. So basically, the ministries of interior, the home affairs ministries, the immigration authorities, bringing them together in one room so that we can also understand from their point of view what needs to be in place for them to be comfortable for their member states to ratify the Free Movement Protocol. But this is something that is absolutely, we agree with you, is critical. You cannot have the CFTA if you don't have the ability to move within the continent. And then in terms of the AGA platform, absolutely, we need to have a balance between the APSA, which is the African Peace and Security Architecture, and the AGA, which is the AGA platform, the African Governance Architecture. In fact, the African Union as a whole has realized the importance of this by merging the two. So now we have AGA APSA. As I mentioned, we are part of the AGA platform. We are driving the visibility around the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. The Citizens Forum on Democracy that we run is part and parcel of our work within the African Governance Architecture. And we are working with APRM, for instance, on developing the civil society component of the African Governance Report as well. So I agree with you, there's a lot more to do to make sure that governance is well situated, because a lot of the issues with peace and security emanate from governance, right? So if your governance is not in order, you're going to have peace and security issues. And so we need to make sure that we have those things consolidated. I think that's everything that I have.
I have one last question from online, quick one, before we move to closing. There's a question from Nana Grace, who is asking, has the portal for registering for membership for local CSOs opened? The portal for registering CSOs, local CSOs opened?
Not yet. I think the person is referring to the database, the accreditation database, yes. So as I mentioned, the framework, we are in the process of getting it approved by the member states. So once the approval comes from member states, once it's endorsed, then we're going to launch the implementation by we'll go live with the portal. So what will happen is that normally any member state, any CSO that wants to get accreditation will just go to an online portal. They'll be able to put in their information. That information will be assessed on the back end, and then they will be able to be awarded the certificates of accreditation. So that is something that is prepared, but it hasn't gone live yet because we need to get the endorsement of the member states. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nana. We are still around if you have further questions, but we need to close because of time. So we have our former presiding officer on standby, Mr. Richard Sewakiranga. I hope I got that correct, just to give us some closing remarks. Mr. Richard, over to you if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead.
Sangha.
Hello.
I was a presiding officer for ECOSOCC. So I'm honored to always be here. There is an echo, if somebody can on that side. Okay, so I'll continue. Let's say that from my the echo is actually disruptive. I don't know if it can be fixed or it can't, but it's okay. I think it's fixed now. Just to say that on my side, as I said, I'm really happy that we have got to this anniversary time when we can say that ECOSOCC has lived for 2 decades. So if it was a human being, I would have got him out of my house, and if he was a boy, asked him to get married. If it was a girl, get him married. So it is that all. Now we are a mature organ, and I think that is important. And I think it has even much more significant importance because across Africa, we know that one of the biggest and the most complicated things that we have had is that we haven't had lots of organizations that have been able to grow. And that, I think, is something that, and grow old, I think I should say that. Yes, we celebrate ourselves as the youngest continent, but I think we also need to sometimes think about the fact that we, as a continent, need to have institutions that are old, that are able to stand a certain level of resilience. So for me, I want to congratulate all of my predecessors. I should have even started by recognizing my old brother Khalid Budali, the presiding officer who is there now, for really continuing to hold on to ECOSOCC. And of course, all of you, my colleagues at the Secretariat, headed by William and Nana and Carol and others, are doing a really, really tremendously good job. I can tell you that as a person who, was with ECOSOCC when we were struggling with the basics of being an organ without a secretariat. So I would like to say also that for me, in terms of reflection, ECOSOCC is a very, very unique organ. Many people don't realize that across the world, it's us in Africa who have been able to actually have an institution, an African institution that is autonomous and yet is part of the African Union. Now that seems like a small thing, but many continents haven't been able to really find a way around it. So I think we have to commend even member states and the African Union for that very visionary leadership, even at a time when it wasn't clear that this would work. So that unique character means that for anyone who is part of civil society across Africa, it's something that we have to take and cherish, but also take very serious. Because while we can say we have challenges of space and other things across Africa for civil society, ECOSOCC as an organ is an organ that is there to promote, to connect, and to ensure that for Africa, for African civil society, that voice is significant and it's present inside the African Union architecture. Now that is something I think we should all celebrate whenever we can. But I also want to say that, ECOSOCC has traveled a long and odious journey. We cannot pretend that it was easy. Sometimes we didn't even know if this would be an organ that would keep standing because there were lots of inside and outside fights about the organ. But we have been able to stand. Why? Because ECOSOC as an organ is a good idea, and good ideas don't die very easily. So I want to really say that that is something that we should cherish. But also another important thing, and I have seen that on the program, we talked about launching national chapters. ECOSOC may be one of the organs of the African Union that has a footprint across the whole of Africa. Now, that is something that we should cherish, because that means that in terms of diversity, in terms of inclusion, this is all possible because of this footprint. So the role of the national chapters in the next 20 years, or even 20 decades of ECOSOC is really something that we should look at much, much more strongly. So I want to urge everybody here in Uganda, I continue to play an active role in the national chapter. And I think that it is something that all partners across the country should be doing. I also want to say a couple of other things. One is the issue of shrinking space for civil society. I think as ECOSOC, this is something that we'll have to continue to be engaged in because, as you know, most of the issues around shrinking space for civil society are really anchored in a fact that there isn't enough clarity about the roles that civil society plays within the governance architecture across Africa. So I guess that this is something we should be promoting. This is something that we should be looking forward to doing a lot more about, so that we could have constructive engagement happening across the continent between the states and the civil society organization. Now, ECOSOC also, I think it's a unique organ, because when we think about the membership of ECOSOC, it is in the diversity of how civil society is represented, looks like across the continent, from cultural institutions to NGOs to social enterprises to academia to religious organizations. All that.
Sorry, former presiding officer, sorry to cut you.
That should define the identity.
Hello,
of ECOSOC.
Can you hear me?
I want to end by really saying that, ECOSOC is a space for civil society in Africa, and what we need to do as people who have been associated. In a sense, when you were once part of ECOSOC, you'll always be part of ECOSOC. I think it is always to find a way in which we continue to build this organ. Why? Because, Africa is still an ongoing experiment, forms something that works for all of us. So in a sense, one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that we do a lot more, and we are able to get ourselves a lot more inside the governance processes of South Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. I want to congratulate all of you for this moment of celebrating 20 years of ECOSOC, and wish you all the best. And hopefully, July we can meet in Accra and celebrate together. Thank you, and over to
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much, former presiding officer. Thank you so much, presiding officer Khalid Budali, William Keru, head of secretariat, and Nana Osei, head of programs, for being with us. And thank you all who joined us, our partners. Andrew, it's always a pleasure to see you. Salma, thank you. Thank you to the media. Thank you, Yavi, for being here and always supporting us as well. So I would like to close this at this note, and you can always catch us and more updates on what we're going to be doing to commemorate our 20 years anniversary on our social media channels, African Union ECOSOCC on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And follow us, and you'll be able to see what we're up to this year. Thank you so much for being here. I have an announcement for the media that they should meet Emmanuel at the door as you go out, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.